Good morning and welcome to KZSC News. On today's broadcast, University of California Santa Cruz Chancellor George Blumenthal speaks about DREAM Act students in the UC system, a rent-freeze ordinance in Santa Cruz, and audio from last week's Martin Luther King Jr. Convocation in Santa Cruz. Stay tuned.
On February 13th, KZSC's Jordan Penland and Daniel Martinez met with UC Santa Cruz's Chancellor George Blumenthal and were able to ask questions pertaining to the status of UC students.
So with our current status on DACA and the removal of temporary protective services for El Salvadorians, you have many students who are undocumented, who are scared that their country has, failed them. What does the University of Santa Cruz offer them?
Yeah, no, this is a huge, just enormous issue for us and for those students who really face just a tremendous challenge, not knowing what the certainty is or having great uncertainty about what their future might be. So, and of course, we all know that right now this is all being debated at the national level, although frankly I'm skeptical that a solution will be emerging from Congress within the next several weeks, which would have to happen. So we've done a number of things on campus and within the UC system. First of all, we were doing the maximum that we possibly can to protect students from potential deportation by ICE and by the federal government. We've instructed our police department not to cooperate with immigration authorities in terms of coming onto campus and rounding up students. They will not provide information or cooperation. We have ensured that our records are not available to immigration authorities so that they can't come on campus and just find out who's undocumented or who's not. I mean, I guess if they have a warrant, they could do it, but that hasn't been the way that they've operated so far, and we're not cooperating with them. So that's point number one. Point number two is we do provide legal support for undocumented students. There's a program that's UC-wide run through UC Davis that has a full-time attorney who provides support for students. And then in addition to that, we've been working with some local immigration attorneys in Santa Cruz County to put together opportunities for our students to seek help locally from those attorneys as well. Because it's really important that whatever happens going forward, that our students get sound legal advice, both for themselves and for their families. And then third, there's a major financial issue faced by DACA students, particularly when DACA is eliminated. Those students won't be able to work anymore, and we're trying to put together some resources to to tide over students so that they can continue to survive as students in the interim. I don't think that we have enough resources to give them the level of packages that we can give to most students on financial aid, but we're trying our best to put together some money. We've raised some money privately to support DACA students, and our goal, our hope is to put together some money that we get from the Office of the President, along with some campus money, along with some donated money to provide additional support for DACA students.
On February 13, 2018, the Santa Cruz City Council passed an interim emergency ordinance establishing a temporary moratorium on certain residential rent increases. Not to exceed 2% and requiring just cause for tenant evictions, the City of Santa Cruz voted unanimously, 5-0, to pass the 2% rent freeze. Two City Council members, Cynthia Matthews and Chris Crone, recused their votes. In the past few years, Santa Cruz has become one of the most expensive housing markets in the nation. This marks the first time in 30 years that rent control actions have been passed, although they are regularly proposed. Cynthia Berger of the Santa Cruz Tenants Association spoke on the subject, stating, "Rent control is not the solution, but it can protect renters overnight." Santa Cruz experiences a high disparity between average weekly median wage and average housing costs. Santa Cruz and Santa Clara have comparable housing costs, though renters in Santa Cruz earn about $950 per week, compared to that of Santa Clara, which is roughly $2,300 per week. According to the ordinance, the city has one of the least affordable housing markets in California and the United States, which exacerbates the city's shortage of decent, safe, affordable, and sanitary rental housing. According to the ordinance, the city has one of the least affordable housing markets in California and the United States, which exacerbates the city's shortage of decent, safe, affordable, and sanitary rental housing. Renters occupy about 56% of the city's housing stock, and 67.5% of renters are cost-burdened under the federal definition, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. The passing of this ordinance means in the city of Santa Cruz, landlords are not permitted to increase rent by more than 2% per year for any rental unit protected under the ordinance. Rent control currently only covers homes rented by single families living in homes built before 1995. This ordinance also ensures that landlords in the city of Santa Cruz cannot evict any lawfully living tenant without adequate notice. There are still conditions which warrant eviction, some of which include failure to pay rent, breach of lease, nuisance, criminal activity, and withdrawal of the rental unit permanently from the rental market.
On Thursday, February 8th, the 34th annual Martin Luther King Convocation in Santa Cruz County was held at the Santa Cruz Civic Center. Speakers included University of California Santa Cruz Campus Diversity Officer Linda Scholes, Community Action Board Director Maria Elena de la Garza, and keynote speaker, Professor of Law and founding coordinator of the Critical Race Theory Workshop, Kimberly Crenshaw. Kimberly Crenshaw spoke about the changing political tensions in America.
If you look around the world, intersectional inequality is everywhere. Undocumented women who suffer sexual harassment at work. Trans women who face gender policing by police authorities. Refugee women who face violence at the hands of people who are there to protect them. The list is endless. These pundits today tell us that we have to put Black women, all socially marginalized people, aside to win again. In fact, according to people like Mark Lilla and others, we've got to stop all this talk about racism and patriarchy and homophobia and transphobia in order to recapture the heart and soul of America, to go back to the old days when we marched under one banner. But Dr. King, when was that? Oh yes, it's hard to find. That's why we're out there mobilizing, voting, turning around elections that pundits are telling us are unwinnable. Don't tell us that. But the time for business as usual was yesterday. They better wake up and get on this bus if they want to ride it to victory in November. They can't do it without us. Not just without Black women, but the rest of us. All of us who the other side wants to take the country back from. If the intersections of all their resentments can hold together a coalition of divergent interests, from the Koch brothers to the out-of-work steel workers, tell me why we can't do a better job holding all of us together. We'll know we're on the right direction when our dreamers are safe and our prisons are empty, when our bathrooms are no longer battlegrounds, and when our votes are no longer repressed. We'll know victory is at hand when Say Her Name and Black Lives Matter and Black Trans Lives Matter and Me Too are all campaigns out there that don't have to be demanded anymore because our lives' values are taken for granted. We know that we will have won. When looking back at this moment, it can be said that this generation, faced with growing hatred, obscene inequality, and human extinction, lifted up its forgotten legacies and wove them into a rich tapestry of resistance to take back our future. Thank you.
I'm Jordan Penland.
I'm Daniel Martinez.
And I'm Ty Gehring. Donovan Young, Devin Lawrence, and Snow Martin also contributed to this week's broadcast. Tomorrow, it will have been 1 year since our first broadcast. Over the last year, our goal has been to provide you with accurate and up-to-date information on our communities across the Monterey Bay. We can only hope that KZSC News means as much to you as it means to us, and we'd like to thank you for your continuing support. Tune in next week for another broadcast.